software process and other models. A software process model describes the processes that are done to achieve software development. A software process model usually includes the following: the tasks, the artifacts, that is files and data, the actors, and the decision. The notations used vary from one model to another. The standard software process models use ovals for tasks and processes, and the artifacts are represented by rectangles and the actors by stick figures. Many software process models do not include decisions. We use we use the diamond symbol whenever we have to show decisions. The flow is shown by arcs, and it is usually left to right and from top to down. Arcs are normally not labeled. Now there are some rules and interpretations for correct process models. Two tasks can be connected by an arc. Tasks must be separated by artifacts. A task is not executable until its input artifacts exists, and there are one or more start tasks and one or more terminal tasks. All the tasks must be reachable from the start task. There is a path from every task to the terminal task. Software process models can be descriptive, that is, they can also describe what has happened in a developmental project. The descriptive model is often created as a part of a post-mortem analysis of the project. Now this can be useful in terms of identifying problems in the software development process. Or software process models can be prescriptive, that is, the software process model can describe what is supposed to happen. Prescriptive software process models can be used to describe the standard software development process. This can be used as training tools for new hires, for reference, for uncommon occurrences, and for documenting what is supposed to be happening. Now we shall take one example. Suppose we take the example and we draw the process diagram for unit testing for that problem. Now the figure shows a process model for unit testing software. There are two actors, the tester, the unit tester, and the other actor is team leader. The unit tester of course is responsible for the unit testing. The unit tester uses the source code and the test plan to accomplish the unit testing. The result of this activity is an artifact, the test result. So this is represented in the form of a rectangle. The team leader reviews the test result, and the result of this activity should be the approval of the unit testing. This model does not explicitly show what happens when the process is not successful. Now this could be inferred that the unit tester keeps testing until he or she is happy. Similarly, if the team leader is not really ready to give the approval, then the process may be backed up to redo the unit testing. So then we can introduce a decision symbol here, that is the report OK. If it is OK, then it can be sent for approval. So this is the example of a process diagram for unit testing. Next we move on to the next category of model, which is called data flow diagram. So one of the most basic diagrams in software development is the data flow diagram. A data flow diagram shows the flow of the data among a set of components. The components may be tasks, software components, or even abstractions of the functionality that will be included in the software system. The actors are not included in the data flow diagram. The sequence of actions can be often inferred from the sequence of the activity boxes. There are some interpretations regarding the data flow diagram. Boxes are processes. In some books you will find circles to represent the process, and they must be verb phrases. These processes are written as verb phrases. Arcs represent data and must be labeled with noun phrases. Control is not shown. Some sequencing may be inferred from the ordering. A process may be a one-time activity, or it may simply be a continuous processing. The two arcs coming out of the box may indicate that both the outputs are produced, or that one or the other is produced. So this figure is illustration of the data flow diagram for unit testing. We have source code and test plan given as inputs to the execute unit test process, which performs which gives the output in the form of test result, which is given to another process which is called review test results, and then the output is again coming back to the execute unit test. Unless and until we get the correct output, this process or this loop will go on, and then finally we will get the review decision. This is the example of data flow diagram. Next type of model is the Petri net model. The basic Petri net model consists of condition nodes, arcs, event nodes, and tokens. If the input condition nodes for an event node is there, then all have tokens and the event can fire. The tokens are removed from the input node and the tokens are placed on all the output nodes of the firing position. The condition nodes are usually represented by circles and the event nodes by horizontal lines or by rectangles. In a Petri net model, the condition nodes usually represent some required condition, for instance, the existence of a test plan. A token at the condition means that the condition is satisfied or it is met. An event node or a horizontal line represent an event that can happen or fire when all the requirements are met. Tokens in all the condition nodes are present. Tokens are then placed at all the conditions that follow the event. Petri net models are useful for analyzing and for the verification, can be used for the verification of protocols. Next is the object models. In object-oriented development, both the problem in the problem domain and the solution in the machine space are described in terms of objects. In the solution, these objects normally become classes. As the requirement and design phases of software development progresses, the objects switch from being the representations of the things in the problem domain to being programming structures in the software. Object model represents entities and relationships between entities. Each box represents a type of object, and the names, attributes, and the methods of the objects are listed in the box. The top section of the box is for the name of the object, and the second section is for the attributes. The bottom section is for the methods. An arc between two objects represents a relation between the objects. Arcs may be labeled in the center and with a name of the association. The roles may be labeled at the opposite end. Also, at each end, a multiplicity may be given indicating how many different associations of the same kind are allowed. The three major types of relationships which are depicted are inheritance. First one, inheritance. Second, aggregation. And third is association. An inheritance relationship implies that the object at the bottom of the arc is a special case of the object at the top of the arc. For example, the top object might be a vehicle and the bottom object a car. Which kind of vehicle may be clearly defined. This is often called a relationship. An aggregation relationship implies that the object at the bottom of the arc is a component of the object at the top of the arc. For example, the top object might be a car and the bottom object might be the association, and this arc might be the association. Now, this is often called part of relationship. The final type of relationship is association, and this is the arc that implies that somehow one of the objects is associated with the other object. For example, father-son relationship is an association. This relationship may be two-way or it might be only one way. So, we shall see the object model for the library problem. Now, a background is required for this, which is called existence dependency. It is in short called ED, which is called existence dependency. One approach to clarify the relationship is to introduce a different relationship which is called existence dependency. Existence dependency relationships are defined in the following way. A class parent can be associated with a lower class child if the lower class or the child class only exists when the upper parent class exists, and each instance of the lower class, that is lower child, is associated with exactly one instance of the upper parent class. This relationship and inheritance can be used to represent any problem domain. Let us consider the example of library. Then there is a loan relation, loan status. Check out, checked out. Figure, library object model, using ED, that is existence dependency. Now, as shown in the figure, all the relationships except loan and library book satisfy the requirements of existence dependency. The relationship loan does not satisfy it, since a copy object can exist before the existence of the patron object, that is checking it out. However, a loan object can be created that does not satisfy the ED relationship. The object book cannot be a child of library, since the books can exist before and after a specific library. Person is added to the diagram to show the part of the pattern that is not existence dependent on the library. So this is the object oriented model or the object model. Next type of model is instance diagrams. Object diagrams represent types of objects. Thus, a box labeled car represents the attributes and the functions of all cars. Sometimes, the relationships between instances of objects are not very clear with the object diagram. Therefore, an instance diagram is drawn which shows which are the instances of objects and may clarify the relationships. Next type is use case diagrams. Use case diagram is a part of UML, that is Unified Modeling Language. It is containing a set of diagrams. It shows the important actors and the functionality of the system. Actors are represented by stick figures. And the functions are represented by ovals. Actors are associated with functions which they can perform. Next we shall see the use case diagram for the simple library. So this is the use case diagram for simple library. Now we find that there are two actors here. In this figure there are two actors. One actor is labeled as patron, who will give the book. So we have two functionalities related to this actor, patron: borrow and return. And we have another actor labeled as librarian, who maintain the functionality of catalog books and shelf books. So these are the functionalities offered by librarian. So this is a simple use case diagram. Next model is scenarios. A scenario is a description. A scenario is a description of one sequence of actions that could occur in the problem domain. Now let us take another example, the same example of the library problem. We will make the scenario for the library problem. Now the example is, write a scenario for the library problem. Fred, a patron, goes to the library and checks out a book. 2 months later, he brings the overdue library book back to the library. So how to write the scenario for this? So we write Fred, a patron, goes to the library. And checks out a book. Two months later, he brings the overdue library book back to the library. So this is one example of a scenario. Next process model is a sequence diagram. A sequence diagram is a part of UML set of diagrams. The diagram has vertical lines which are called instances of class, which represent instances of class. For example, if in the library problem we will have main, patron instance is Fred, book instance is novel, copy instance is one. So vertical lines are present in the figure. Each vertical line is labeled at the top with the class name followed by a colon followed by the instance name. For example, the first line is labeled with lib :main for the instance main of the class library. Horizontal arrows depict function calls. Okay, so suppose there is a checkout, so it will be labeled as checkout. So horizontal arrows depict function calls. The tail of the arrows is on the line of the calling class and the head of the arrow is on the line of the called class. The name of the function is on the arrow. The white block on the vertical line shows the execution time of the called function. So if there is a box, then it will indicate how much time is required for execution of this particular function. Returns are normally not shown. Multiple calls to the same functions are often shown as just one arrow. So this is one example of the sequence diagram. Next, hierarchy diagram. Let us see an example. Suppose we have patron, scope resolution operator, checkout, library, checkout, copy, checkout, the last one is book. Change status. So this is the example of hierarchy diagram. A hierarchy diagram shows the calling structure of a system. Each box in the figure represents a function. A line is drawn from one function to another function. If the first function can call the second function, then all the possibilities of call are shown. It is not one of the UML set of diagrams, and it is often not used in object-oriented development systems. However, it can be a very useful diagram to understand the dynamic structure of a system. Now, yesterday we had seen the example of control flow graphs. So that is also an example of the process model, control flow graph. A control flow graph, or a CFG, shows the control structure of code. Each node or circle represents a block of code that has only one way through the code. That is, there is one entrance at the beginning of the block and one exit at the end. If any statement in the block is executed, then all the statements in the block are executed. Arcs between the nodes represent the possible flows of control. That is, if it is possible that block B is executed right after block A, then there must be an arc from block A to block B. There are some rules for correct control flow diagrams. There must be one start node. From the start node there must be a path to each node, and from each node there must be a path to the halting node. Next type of diagram is the state diagram. The state of a machine or program is the collection of all the values of all the variables, registers, and so on. A state diagram shows the states of the system and all the possible transactions between the arcs, between the states. A program or machine will have an extremely large number of different states. However, many states will be similar in how much the machine will behave on the next input and how the machine is going to behave on the next input, and so on. A group of states with similar behavior can be grouped together into a state. These states can be diagrammed to show the transition between the states. Many programs are described with a state diagram. So we shall consider the example of a state diagram for a fixed size stack. So from the state diagram we can observe that first it is new, it is going to the empty state. The states are shown using circles. Then we have to push the element inside the stack. Then if it is normal, then the push will be satisfied, push condition will be satisfied, and we can also pop the element. Then this process gets repeated if it is normal, but once the stack is full and it is having a fixed size, suppose, then the pop operation cannot be generated. Push operation cannot be generated. Next model is the lattice model. Figure lattice model for stack example. Now if we look at the coding, it is int push int item. If stack index is equal to max, then return error. Stack index, otherwise it is to be incremented with the item, and return 0. So using this code we can draw the lattice model. Basically a lattice is a mathematical structure that shows set relationships. Although not used in software development very often, it is being used more to show the relationship between the set of functions and the attributes. So the top node represents the set of all attributes and the bottom node the empty set. The nodes are annotated with the names of the functions that use the subset of the attributes. Thank you.